IGP, the affirmation of constitutional limits in Asari vs. Attorney General, and the continued constitutional oversight seen in cases such as Abdullahi vs. Attorney General, all demonstrating that Ghana's democracy has been strengthened because of an independent and courageous judiciary. For these reasons, I confidently submit that Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than to any other state institution. I respectfully urge this Honorable House to support the motion. Thank you.
Did it in 6 minutes. We'll now invite Chemu Secondary School to speak against the motion. You have 10 minutes.
The Chair, esteemed judges of the Superior and Lower Courts, impartial timekeeper, fellow debaters, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Millicent Namumu Afote, and I stand before you to speak in opposition of the motion before the House, and I quote, Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than to any other state institution. Before I begin, permit me to define certain keywords as used in the motion. Constitutional democracy, according to the Cambridge English Dictionary, is a system of government in which power is held by elected representatives and exercised according to a set of political principles. And the judiciary, according to the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, is the third arm of government responsible for the interpretation of the Constitution. Permit me to rebut a point my opponent made. Your Honor, imagine building a mansion. You lay a solid foundation, you build the walls, and you install the roof. After that, you hire a security guard to stand at the main gate, and then decades later, someone stands in front of that same building and declares, this mansion owes its entire existence to the security guard. Does that make of Parliament, there would be no government, and most importantly, there would be no constitutional mandate for the judiciary itself, as conferred by Article 2 and Article 125 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. According to the Institute for Democratic Governance, Ghana has conducted multiple peaceful votes are cast peacefully, and the overwhelming majority of election results are accepted without judicial intervention. Secondly, under Chapter 8 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, the executive plays a pivotal role in Ghana's democracy because they ensure that government is accountable, responsive, and operates according to the rule of law. For instance, the Chapter 8 of the 1992 Constitution mandates the executive to work within the principles of separation of power, as illustrated in the case of NPP v. Rawlings and another. Again, the executive is mandated to be accountable to the parliament and to the electorate, to protect citizens' rights and freedoms, and to promote participation in governance, and to maintain peace, security, and political stability in the nation. Your Honor, this goes on to say that constitutional democracy in Ghana is strengthened by ensuring the executive action remain lawful and accountable, as seen in the case of Amidu v. Kufuor. Advocacy and participation. Accountable and transparent governance, and also supporting democracy is preserved only in courtrooms. However, independence of the media as the fourth estate of the realm under Chapter 12 of the 1992 Constitution has enabled journalists to scrutinize the executive, legislature, and even the judiciary itself. Many constitutional disputes, corruption scandals, and government failures first came to public attention because of courageous media reporting before any court action was taken. For example, through the investigative work of Anas Arimeyao Anas in exposing corruption, the Fourth Estate revelations of public sector wrongdoing, and the continuous scrutiny of the government by Joy News, City FM, TV3, and other media organizations, the press has held public officials accountable and promoted transparency. Panel of judges, it is inarguable that Ghana's constitutional democracy owes much of its resilience to a free and vibrant media. Democracy is sustained not only by court judgments, but also by an informed citizenry, and the media has been instrumental in making that possible. Lastly, traditional leaders preserve democracy by grounding it in Ghana's cultural and constitutional framework. For instance, Article 11 identifies customary laws as one of the sources of Ghana's laws, while Chapter 22 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana establishes and protects the institution of chieftaincy, guaranteeing its dignity, authority, and independence from interference, affirming its legitimacy as part of the democratic order. This constitutional recognition makes traditional leaders indispensable pillars of Ghana's democracy, often more immediate in impact. Traditional leaders made up of chiefs, queen mothers, elders, and customary councils act as custodians of the heritage and community trust. They mediate disputes, uphold moral authority, and reinforce social cohesion at the grassroots level. The House. By bridging constitutional democracy with cultural identity, traditional leaders ensure that democracy is not only legal, but also socially accepted and practiced daily. In conclusion, Ghana's democracy is not the triumph of one institution, but the collective efforts of many. It begins with the people through the Electoral Commission, is upheld by the executive, is defended daily by the media, amplified by the civil society, and preserved by traditional leaders. To claim the judiciary alone carries democracy is to ignore the collective efforts of the many guardians that keep freedom alive. Ghana's constitutional democracy stands because all these institutions work together, not one above the rest. Thank you.
Shemu did it in 5 minutes. St. Mary's, you have a right of rebuttal for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, as by law established, Justices of the Supreme Court, Justice of the Court of Appeal, the Honorable Judicial Secretary, Justice of the High Court, Circuit Court Judges and Magistrates, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow students, good day. I, with Eduji Akabua, rise to conclude the case for the proposition. My first speaker has clearly demonstrated that the judiciary is the guardian of the Constitution, the protector of fundamental human rights, and the defender of the rule of law. My responsibility is to show why the opposition has failed to disprove this argument and why this honorable House must support the motion. Mr. Chairman, throughout this debate, the opposition argued that democracy begins with elections, but constitutional democracy survives because elections are trusted. One may ask, why are elections trusted in Ghana? Because every political party knows that if dispute arises, there is an independent judiciary capable of settling them fairly. The best example is the 2012 presidential election petition. Instead of violence or political intimidation, the parties presented their evidence before the Supreme Court. The court delivered a judgment and the losing party accepted the verdict. That peaceful resolution strengthened Ghana's democratic reputation across Africa and proved that the judiciary is the ultimate stabilizer of our democracy. Mr. Chairman, permit me to leave this honorable House with a simple illustration. Imagine Ghana's democracy as a football match. The executive, the parliament, and the electoral commission are all important players. But no football match can be played fairly without an independent referee. The referee does not score goals, the referee does not coach the team, neither does the referee own the stadium. Yet, without a referee, there is no fair game. Likewise, the judiciary does not govern the country or conduct elections. Instead, it ensures that everyone plays according to constitutional rules. Without that impartial referee, constitutional democracy cannot endure. Mr. Chairman, allow me to rebut my point of the opponent. My opponent says democracy says the media promotes accountability. The media may expose corruption, but it cannot punish corruption. Journalists investigate. The judiciary delivers justice. Without court, media investigation become mere newspaper stories. Justice is completed only through judicial decisions. Mr. Chairman, honorable judges, throughout this debate, the proposition has demonstrated that the judiciary has protected the supremacy of the Constitution, has defended the rights and freedom of citizens, as well as peacefully resolved election disputes, checked abuses of power, strengthened accountability, and maintained public confidence in the rule of law. Our opponents have described what other institutions do. We have shown which institutions ensure that they all do it lawfully. For that reason, and for the continuous strength of Ghana's constitutional democracy,
I, with Ediji Akaba, respectfully urge this Honorable House to support the motion. Thank you.
Yes, Chemu, you have a right of Saribata. 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Julia Morgan, a supporting speaker from Chemu Senior High, standing firmly against the motion, and I quote, Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than any other state institution. Before I begin, allow me to address one point my opponent stated. They say the role of the judiciary can be likened to a referee in a football match. Along the sides of the field, he blows the whistle only when a foul occurs during the match. The players, on the other hand, run around the pitch in an attempt to score goals. Now imagine after the match ends, the man of the match trophy was handed not to the star striker, not to the captain, but to the referee, claiming he played more football than the entire team combined. This is the idea my opponents are trying to make. The judiciary is our constitutional referee, essential, respected, and necessary. But to claim that Ghana's democracy owes more to the referee than to the other players is a complete misunderstanding of the game. They claim judiciary protects the constitution. However, protecting the constitution is different from creating constitutional democracy. A security guard protects a building, but he did not build it. Similarly, the judiciary safeguards democracy, but did not create or sustain it alone. Now to my point. Ghana's constitutional democracy owes much to the influence of pressure groups whose advocates have strengthened accountability, protected constitutional rights, and ensured that government remains responsive to the people. Article 21 ensures peaceful demonstrations, policy advocacy, petition, public education, and constructive engagement with state institutions. Institutions such as the Trade Union Congress, Ghana Bar Association, Coalition of Domestic Observers, Occupy Ghana, Alliance for Accountable Governance, and University Teachers Association of Ghana have consistently championed constitutionalism, electoral integrity, the rule of law, transparency, and good governance. Their interventions have influenced legislation, challenged unconstitutional actions, and compelled the government to listen to the concerns of the citizens. As illustrated in Mensma and others v. Attorney General, the 1992 Constitution guarantees the freedom of association under Article 21, which empowers citizens to form and join pressure groups to promote and defend their interests within the framework of the law. Must citizens wait 4 years and file a court case before their voice can shape government policy? Your Lordships, this is a democracy functioning in real time, not through litigation, but through organized citizen pressure that forces the government to remain accountable between elections. When pressure groups compel the government to reverse an unpopular policy, no judge has ruled, no court has convened, yet democratic accountability has occurred. On to my next point. Ghana's constitutional democracy owes much to the indispensable role of the political parties, as recognized under Chapter 7 of the 1992 Constitution. Pursuant to Article 55, political parties are the legitimate vehicles for shaping the political will of the people, and our constitutional democracy ensures that power alternates peacefully between them. This alternation of power is not a judicial achievement. It is the product of political parties mobilizing citizens, contesting elections, forming government critically, accepting defeats, and handing over power peacefully. The importance of political parties was further affirmed in MPP versus Attorney General 31st December case, where the Apex Court reinforced the principles of multi-partyism and constitutional supremacy as captured in the Article 3 and democratic participation. Without political parties, there would be no organized opposition, no debate, no manifestos, and no mechanism through which citizens would translate their government. Your Lordships, what is a democracy without choice? And what is choice without competing political parties to offer it? The Chair, my last but not the least point is that Ghana's constitution owes much to the invaluable contribution of think tanks whose research, policy analysis, evidence-based advocacy have strengthened democratic governance and informed public policy on decision-making. Chapter 6 of the 1992 Constitution sets out the directive principle of state policy and joins all citizens, organizations, and institutes to promote democracy and national development. Think tanks have become indispensable partners in advancing these constitutional ideals, but by conducting independent research,
proposing constitutional and electoral reforms, educating citizens, and facilitating dialogue among stakeholders, think tanks such as Imani Africa, Africa Center for Economic Transformation, Institute of Economic Affairs, and the African Center for Energy Policy have enhanced transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. Can a nation make sound decisions if no one is willing to challenge the thinking behind those decisions? These institutions actively strengthen the democracy, not by ruling on legal disputes, but by equipping citizens and policymakers with the knowledge to make sound democratic decisions in the first place. The judiciary does not generate policy ideas and it does not conduct research. It waits for cases. Think tanks are doing democracy's homework far before the judiciary is ever called. In conclusion, think back to the greatest football matches in history. When the final whistle blows and the stadium erupts in celebration, we do not hand the trophy to the referee. The judiciary is our pillar of democracy, yes, but if we are to remove political parties, we lose democracy itself. If we remove pressure groups, remove the voice between elections, and if we remove think tanks, we remove the thoughts that go into every decision. Hence, the claim that Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than any other state institution is, and I repeat, a complete misunderstanding of the game. Let us not mistake the guardians of the rule for the creator of our success. Ghana's democratic triumph belongs to the entire team of state institutions, and so we must reject any motion that tries to throw dust into our eyes. I rest my case.
Wow. 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 Congratulations, debaters. Very, very clear is the ingenuity of our debaters, the metaphorical inclusion of soccer, knowing that we are in the football season. Just that these debaters are Argentine supporters. So let's give them a round of applause again. So lot 1 is done. The PRESEC and Accra High will take their turn for the next set. So please clap for Chimu and so PRESEC and Accra High. PRESEC, you are still preparing. This is not National Science and Maths quiz. Just come. Where's Accra High? Wow. PRESEC, if it is National Science and Maths quiz, just look at my chest, okay? That's in Fan Swim School. So just relax, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Okay. So my lords and ladies, teachers, guests, ladies and gentlemen, the media, the second slot is PRESEC and Accra High speaking for and against the motion on the table. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Speaking for the motion.
The chairperson, panel of judges, accurate timekeeper, respected guests, co-debaters, ladies and gentlemen, good day. My name is Brady Apa L. Jason of Accra High School, and I stand before you as the principal speaker to firmly support the motion put before the House. Quote, Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than any other state institution. Of quote. The chairperson, before I begin, please permit me elaborate certain key terms for better understanding of the motion. 1. Constitutional democracy, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is a system of government in which power is held by elected representatives and exercised according to a set of political principles. 2. Judiciary, also according to Mr. Brian Garner, is a branch of government charged with the interpretation of laws and the administration of justice. Finally, the phrase, all small, according to Cambridge Dictionary, means to be strongly influenced and dependent on something. Having clearly defined the key terms, The motion simply means the judiciary contributes more to the success, survival, and stability of Ghana's constitutional democracy than any other state institution like the executive and legislature. Why? Mr. Chairman, first and foremost, the judiciary serves as a check on other arms of government. It is the judiciary that ensures that all actions put up by the executive and parliament are lawful. They make sure they do not abuse their power and hold them responsible for any deed that is unlawful to the constitution and even to the people. The chairperson, Article 2 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, allows every person to challenge unconstitutional acts. Cases such as Asari versus Attorney General and the New Patriotic Party versus Attorney General shows that the court can restrain state power if it exceeds its constitutional limits. This also ensures that every public official is held accountable for his or her deed. The chairperson, in addition, the judiciary is the guardian of the Constitution. The Constitution can only be effective if there is an institution empowered to enforce it. Whenever Parliament passes or enacts a law, and the executive undertakes an action which is inconsistent with the Constitution, it is the judiciary that has the authority to declare it unconstitutional. This can be demonstrated in the case of Tufo versus Attorney General in 1980, where the Supreme Court affirmed the Constitution as the supreme law of the state, and the need for all state institutions to act within their constitutional limit. This also makes sure that no individual institution is above the law, and the Constitution remains the supreme law of the state. Mr. Chairman, thirdly, the judiciary protects the rights and fundamental freedoms of citizens in the country. Democracy cannot thrive in a country where rights of citizens are being disregarded. It is the judiciary that safeguards the rights guaranteed under the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of worship, freedom of assembly, and the right to fair trial. The chairperson, Article 33 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, allows every person to seek redress if his rights are being violated. In the case of Emmanuel versus Ghana National Gas Company, 2017, the court held that punishment for trade union activities is a violation of rights. By protecting the rights of citizens, the judiciary gives citizens the confidence to participate freely in national affairs and hold leaders accountable for their deeds. The chairperson, again, the judiciary is responsible for securing free and fair elections and peaceful transfer of power. One of the greatest achievements of Ghana's constitutional democracy is the peaceful transfer of power from one government to the other. This has been made possible because the judiciary acts as the final and trusted arbiter of election disputes. A clear example is the 2012 presidential elections, where the judiciary had to hear the matter and provide fair judgment. For the peaceful transfer of power, a clear example is the 2016 presidential elections, where the New Patriotic Party defeated the National Democratic Congress. Instead of conflict, the results were accepted peacefully, and it was the Supreme Court that swore in our former president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, as president then. Without the judiciary, election disputes may lead to instability and threaten our democracy. The chairperson, in conclusion, a nation may have laws, but without the judiciary, those laws are just like empty words on paper. It is the judiciary that gives life to the Constitution, enforces justice, guards the Constitution, and protects the rights and fundamental freedoms of citizens. Without the judiciary, fairness collapses, constitutional democracy weakens, and disorder prevails. For this reason, I urge you all to stand with me to firmly support the motion put before the House. Quote, Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than any other state institution. Of quote. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. I want to talk like you. Thank you. Thank you. Presec, speak against the motion. You did it in 5 minutes. Presec, you have 10 minutes. Speak against the motion.
Mr. Chairman, Justices of our esteemed court, honorable judges, accurate timekeeper, worthy opponents, ladies and gentlemen, representing the epitome of academic excellence, I, Master Mackenzie Tetelawe, rise to oppose the motion before this august house, saying that Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than to any other state institution. Mr. Chair, I grew up believing that a strong family is one where everyone knows their responsibility. One parent earns the income, the other parent provides guidance, and the children may support one another. If a person stops playing their role, their entire family struggles. Yet, we never say that the family's success belongs to only one member. In the same way, Ghana's constitutional democracy is a family of different state institutions working together and hand in hand. The judiciary is a member of that family, but it's not the family in of itself. To say that Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than to any other state institution is clearly inaccurate due to the fact that, just like the strong family, other state institutions work alongside with the judiciary to achieve a single goal, that is stable constitutional democracy. Mr. Chair, before I continue, permit me to ask this Honorable House a simple question. If tomorrow the judiciary ceases to exist, will Ghana's constitutional democracy instantly collapse? If the media cease to provide credible information to the good people of Ghana, will political leaders be held accountable, or would you actually have a sense of what is happening in this country? If the parliament stopped making laws, if the executive stopped governance and implementing those laws, and if the people no longer express their sovereign will through democratic elections, would there be a constitutional democracy for the judiciary to sustain? Mr. Chairman, the answer to all these questions is unrefutably no. In order to win this debate, we must first comprehend what constitutional democracy actually is. A constitutional democracy is a system of government in which the people choose their leaders through democratic elections, and those leaders exercise their power according to a constitution that limits their authority and protects the rights of the citizens. We on this side of the House understand for Ghana's constitutional democracy to owe more to the judiciary than to any other state institution, as the motion states, is to ask which institution deserves the greatest credit for the existence, stability, and success of Ghana's constitutional democracy, to which our answer is none. Although the judiciary is indispensable, constitutional democracy cannot be credited primarily to it because the democracy depends on the combined contributions of many institutions. We therefore urge side proposition to listen attentively as to why the judiciary cannot be solely credited for Ghana's constitutional democracy. Before I move to my point, allow me to rebut the idea that the judiciary is the only state institution that promotes accountability. There are several mechanisms that the Constitution has enshrined in several state institutions that actually allow them to ensure accountability in their own way. For example, the Office of the Special Prosecutor ensures that political leaders are held accountable. The Office of the Auditor General ensures that there is financial accountability in the country. Mr. Chair, we believe in the independence of state institutions for the function of constitutional democracy. Mr. Chairman, one broomstick cannot sweep an entire compound, just as a single tree cannot make an entire forest. The entire concept of constitutional democracy, from its onset to its sustenance, requires the efforts of each and every state institution, including but not exclusive to the judiciary. To start, constitutional democracy begins with the Electoral Commission, conducting free, fair, and credible elections, allowing citizens to choose their leaders, and therefore giving the government legitimacy. This is important because legitimacy is the core foundation of constitutional democracy. Without it, there is no constitutional democracy for the judiciary or any other state institution to actually protect. Mr. Chair, next, the people's choice then produces the executive and the parliament. The parliament makes the laws while the executive implements them. Together, they convert the constitution from words on paper into a living, breathing government in action. Without them, the constitution will just remain a document. This is clearly important because having a constitutional democracy is not just about having a constitution, but it's about living according to it. Again, the judiciary then steps in, not to create democracy, but to protect it. By interpreting the constitution, settling disputes, and checking on constitutional actions, it safeguards the rule of law, ensuring that every institution stays within its constitutional limits. Mr. Chair, as the African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Ghana's constitutional democracy has endured so much because our institutions go together, not because one institution works alone. The media and the National Media Commission provide transparency. By informing citizens and exposing wrongdoing, they enable the public to hold their leaders accountable. Accountability and democratic governance is very important because constitutional democracy is built on limited government, rule of law, and popular sovereignty of the people. If the leaders are not held accountable and do not govern according to the constitution, democracy begins to fail. Mr. Chair, I believe you will all agree with me when I say that democracy begins with informed citizens. That's why we have the National Commission for Civic Education, which educates Ghanaians about their rights and responsibilities, encouraging meaningful participation in national life. None of these institutions, and I mean none of them, would actually be able to operate effectively without peace and security. That responsibility falls to the Ghana Police Service, which protects elections, public order, and exercise of constitutional freedoms. Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman, all these state institutions come together to establish what we see and call as a constitutional democracy in Ghana's governance. Mr. Chair, our next argument is that the judiciary is more of a reactive institution rather than a proactive one. By its very constitutional design, the judiciary does not act on its own initiative. Before it can perform its constitutional functions, there must first be a dispute, a constitutional question, or a case brought before it. In other words, it waits for a matter to come before it before exercising its judicial power. Mr. Chair, our opponents clearly concede to this fact in all the examples that they raise. Clearly, you can see that in all the examples that they raise, there is a constitutional dispute. On the judiciary only works until there is a constitutional dispute, meaning they clearly agree with us when we say that the judiciary is more of a reactive arm of government rather than a productive one. Now, this takes us back to the question we posed earlier. If tomorrow the judiciary ceased to exist, would Ghana's constitutional democracy instantly collapse? The answer still remains no. Elections could still be conducted by the Electoral Commission, Parliament could still pass laws, the executive could still govern, citizens could still participate in the democratic process. While the absence of the judiciary would eventually create serious constitutional and legal problems, democracy will not cease to exist the very next day because the institutions that are actively generating and sustaining democratic governance would still be operating. Our point, Mr. Chairman, is not to say that the judiciary is unimportant. On the contrary, it is indispensable. However, its role is to largely protect and correct the democratic process after constitutional issues arise, whereas there are other institutions that are constantly creating, implementing, and sustaining that process. Therefore, if the motion asks us which institution constitutional democracy owes more to, it would be therefore inaccurate to single out the judiciary above institutions that are continuously involved in giving life, legitimacy, and practical effect to Ghana's constitutional democracy. Mr. Chair, we have clearly won this debate for the compelling reasons that we have argued before this august House. Remember that a three-legged stool cannot stand if we give credits only to one leg. If we give credits to only one leg, what is another, judges, before I end, let's keep this in mind. For what is a father without his children, and what is a husband without his wives? Opposing the motion, the chair, the House, I bow. Thank you.
Thank you. Accra High, you have a right of rebuttal for 5 minutes.
The chairperson, honorable judges, all protocols duly observed. My name is Kobina Portia of Accra High School, speaking as a supporting speaker for the motion, quote, Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than to any other state institution, of course. My opponent, I want to decline the offer to go out of contest. We are not here to say that the judiciary is the solely institution protecting the law. We are here that the constitutional democracy has been protected and safeguarded all through these years. And we are talking about who deserves more. My opponent, you claim that the judiciary is claiming the thanks for itself, but the case is not. Secondly, you spoke about how constitutional democracy begins with the Electoral Commission. My opponent, the Constitution, the same Constitution that mandates the Electoral Commission to conduct election, is the same Constitution being safeguarded and protected by the judiciary. In other words, the judiciary is the mother of the Constitution, and nothing that the Electoral Commission does, which is out of order, can be if the judiciary does not stand in. To continue, you said the people's choice can be, you said the people's choice is constitutional democracy. My opponent, there is difference between democracy and constitutional. There is difference between democracy and constitutional democracy. Democracy by the people can be out of order, as the Article 2, Clause 1 says. If any law is inconsistent with the Constitution, the judiciary has the power to declare it void or null. So that people can also go out of order when it comes to democracy. My opponent, you made a statement that the judiciary is more proactive than reactive. I want to ask you a question. Does the Ghana National Fire Service work every day? Does the police service work every day? Do they go out to arrest people every single day? No. Same as the court waits for as an issue to come up, it's the same way that an issue must come up before the police service or any other institution goes to settle it. In conclusion, Constitution does not exist only because power exists. Constitution exists because power restrained it. And if all the doors of justice is closed, it is the court that remains the only hope to safeguard and protect it. Therefore, I urge this honorable house to bear with me and vote in supporting of the motion. Quote, Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than to any other state institution. Off quote. Thank you.
Okay, Presec, you have 5 minutes for Saripata.
The chairperson, panel of judges, accurate timekeeper, worthy opponents, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen. I am Anthony Owusu of the Presbyterian Boys Secondary School. Good day. The chairperson, can a house remain standing when one of its pillars is raised higher than the others? No. In the same vein, our constitutional democracy cannot stand if one state institution is proclaimed greater than the others. Before you, August House, I stand today to fervently argue against the motion, Ghana's constitutional democracy owes more to the judiciary than to any other state institution. My opponents have made very compelling points, but permit me to debunk them with the following arguments. 1. Mr. Chairman, constitutional democracy cannot be upheld only by the judiciary, not even by a single state institution. Rather, it depends on the sustained combined efforts of all state institutions. Secondly, checks and balances goes in every direction. The executive and parliament are also responsible for ensuring the judiciary acts within the limits of the Constitution. Other state institutions, like the Office of the Special Prosecutor and the Auditor General, are also responsible for ensuring accountability. Peace during elections is as a result of the good work of the Electoral Commission, security services, and the cooperation of citizens. The judiciary does not involve itself until disputes arise after elections. In addition, the judiciary does not act independently in interpreting the law. It works with the executive and other institutions like the police force to enforce its verdicts. Next, Mr. Chairman, the judiciary is a reactive body in that it cannot initiate its own cases, but has to wait for cases of violations to be brought before it. Now, contrary to what my opponents have said, the judiciary is not the only institution responsible for protecting human rights. The Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, police force, and other security services are also involved, as their actions directly relate to rights protection. Next, constitutional democracy is sustained mainly through respect for the Constitution, its laws and statings, rather than through court decisions or rulings. Honorable Chairman, one can even argue that the judiciary's independence is questionable. Members of the judiciary are appointed through the joint efforts of the executive and parliament. This begs further questions on the bias of their rulings and their overall independence. I do not speak alone, nor for myself, when I say that prevention is better than cure. Although the judiciary is the main body responsible for dispute management, the executive and parliament also contribute in a more proactive way through peaceful delegation and conversation. Panel, allow me to reference Articles 58, 93, and 125 of our Constitution, which give power to the legislature, executive, and judiciary respectively. Complementary, not superior rules, each important for smooth running of the democratic governance. To say that the judiciary solely protects supreme law without executive is false. Without executive implementation and the legislature's representation of the people, the law becomes mere ink on paper. My opponent stated that the judiciary is the mother of constitutional democracy. Although the judiciary came first, this statement clearly undermines the supremacy of the Constitution. We are not saying that the judiciary is unimportant because it does not work every day. They are reactive in the sense that more institutions work more proactively in ensuring that our democracy stays afloat. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, panel of judges, accurate timekeeper, worthy opponents, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen, it is evident that our constitutional democracy does not owe more to the judiciary, but to the joint efforts of all state institutions involved: the Electoral Commission, the executive, parliament, security services, police force, SHAD, NCCE, and every other state institution play equally important roles in ensuring our constitutional democracy stays working. Before I rest my case, may I ask, is the jury more important than the judge? A building can only stand when all its pillars are of equal height. Thank you.
Thank you, Presec and Accra High. My ladies and my lord judges, we defer to you for your overall comments.
So thank you very much, my lord. We've had some very interesting debates. I think you all deserve a round of applause. So just like So I'll call my sister sitting to my right. She'll give you a few remarks about the strengths of each team's case and then the areas requiring improvement. So my lady, Kafui.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson. So I will speak to the overall strengths of the schools and then pick individual schools and then speak about their strengths and weaknesses or areas that they need to develop on. So about the strengths, I'm so impressed by your presentation. It was well researched. You all combined logical reasoning with emotional appeal. You cited authorities, and it's so impressive. And then you addressed the core arguments that you were supposed to present. And that is very remarkable. Once again, I congratulate all of you for a good work done. Now, I will go to the individual schools. And so for St. Mary's Secondary School, the strengths of the main speaker. As I stated earlier, your arguments were well grounded in law. You cited the relevant authorities. But one thing you need to improve on is voice modulation. In debate, you would want to catch the attention of your listener. So you may want to employ different tones of presentation. But what we hear is a flat-out presentation which doesn't augur well for attracting your listener. And then I know you are all working against time, but you seem to be rushing. And so if you were to employ the voice modulation whilst you are speaking in a fast tone, then we all catch along. Then I go to, now for the rebuttal. Rebuttal, it's so impressive. Rebuttal is to respond to your opponent's presentation, and this was well done. There was that linkage, the cohesion between the motion and then for your opponent, and that also was well researched. But with, okay, so I'll go to Chemu Secondary School. Again, your presentation, as I encouraged all of you earlier, was well presented, supported with legal arguments. I must point to one thing, your citations. I didn't get that well. I don't know whether you are saying so and so via or v so and so. So when you are, this is a legal submission you're making, you may have asked for guidance as to how cases are cited. For instance, 2-4 versus Attorney General. I'm not saying that you should get all the Supreme Court, Ghana law reports, and so on and so on. This is not a court. But at least it should be Supreme 2-4 versus Attorney General and so on. But I had 2-4 via Attorney General or via Attorney General. So take note of that. You could have had a bit of research to know how cases are cited in law. And again, your oratory skills was good. and you presented well. Then I deals with the rebuttal, that is Chemo Secondary School. You stated in rebuttal to the presentation of St. Mary, especially on the democracy, you said that democracy starts with the people, supported with law, and then the effort traditional leaders also make to bring democracy to the fore. This is very remarkable because it speaks to what St. Mary had presented. And now I go to Presec and Accra High. So for the main speaker, yes, your presentation was also on point, but to speak to your weakness is about body language. It is good that you employ body language, but you have to be careful you don't overdo it. Other than that, then it descends into more of a drama presentation. But your presentation was also good. I think you were well acclaimed by the House. And okay. Then Presec, you were very engaging. We like the varying style with your presentation, asking questions in between, which will also catch our attention. Now, one of you, that is the main speaker, used an expression in one of our local languages. You could have given us an English equivalent or the meaning in English for those who don't speak to follow your presentation. I'll leave the rest to the rest of the panelists.
Thank you very much. So my brother to my left will talk about the quality of legal and constitutional reasoning. He will only provide general remarks in respect of all the speakers. He won't identify the various schools. Thank you.
Yes. I will begin by saying that the standard of debating has exceeded my expectations, and the schools deserve an applause. Now, cases were cited, and the issues were addressed, relevant issues were addressed. What is lacking is statutes were not mentioned. And I also noticed that there was also an absence of judicial review cases. Cases of judicial review was absent. And by extension, it downplayed the role of the general public. Nobody mentioned the role of the general public, because without the public, democracy cannot also be safeguarded. You need a general public to bring cases to court, and cases were not mentioned in that regard. I will not say much, but because the standard that was exhibited today is above my expectation, I think with the formation of justice clubs in the schools, you would highlight on the points that were raised by my colleagues on the bench and improve on them. Thank you.
So I'll talk about the effectiveness of the rebuttals and the overall persuasiveness. I'll generally summarize. So with respect to the first two schools, Chemo and St. Mary's, the main speaker rightly identified the role of the judiciary, and her persuasiveness stems from her eloquence. You know, she canvassed her arguments with few H's, but when she made a H, you know, she quickly overcame that, and that's a plus, because sometimes when some people stumble, then they end there. But whenever she stumbled, she went on, and that made her a very persuasive speaker. And she broke the ice. So she wasn't overawed by the fact that she was appearing before 3 judges. She was a fair speaker. And she broke the ice for the rest of the speakers, and I think that's a plus and deserves commendation. And the speaker from, so let me just talk about the supporting speaker from St. Mary's. She also made a notable point about the role of the judiciary. And she made an important point that without the judiciary, people will resort to self-help. And I believe that is very vital and crucial. Now with Chemu, in her rebuttal, she referred to the role of other statutory bodies. She specifically referred to the Electoral Commission, and to show that Ghana's democracy does not depend on the judiciary alone.
You heard the analysis, but at the end of the day, you were commended. So my ladies and my lord, we are so grateful for the in-depth analysis. You've done justice to the topic and to the debaters. Give it up for our ladies and our lord. These justice clubs are under the tutelage and mentoring of a professor who is a judge. So you can see how they are performing because they are led by a professor. I have the privilege and honor to invite to the podium now Justice Professor Olivier Nkuche Day to come and give us just what is Justice Club, why they are here, and then I'll give you a final announcement and we'll be out of here. So, my lady Prof, I will.
Good afternoon, my lords, my ladies, students, patrons, mentors gathered here today. I am very happy and proud of the performance of our dear students. They were not given enough notice, but we can all see the outcome of their practicing and all that. Indeed, this is would meet, exchange ideas, learn the process of becoming critical thinkers, participate in debates and moot court. In 2024, we had a moot court for the schools in the Greater Accra region, and indeed, Accra High School won. So I'm not really surprised about their performance. There's something in Accra High School. I'm yet to find out what makes them perform the way they do. So far, the Justice Clubs have been formed in the Western, Central. We were in the Eastern region last 2 weeks, and we're in the Ashanti region last Friday, and also in the Greater Accra region. Hopefully, we intend to go to the Northern region also this year to establish about 10 Justice Clubs in 10 schools. We are very grateful to the management of each of the schools here today, the patrons, especially the mentors who spend day and night assisting the students to prepare for today. Thank you very much. And you all did excellently well. And we hope that next time when we invite you, you will be happy to attend. Thank you, and thank you all for joining us today.
I have a beautiful announcement for the Justice Clubs. Your senior brothers and sisters from the faculties of law are waiting outside. This room will be full, so you can't be here. You would have gone back to school, but the IT department has provided an e-view for you in the Chief Justice's court, so you can watch live the moot court that will be done in this room, instead of going home or back to your schools. So you climb up, a screen has been set up for you, and you participate live and watch it, okay? And then your certificates will be ready on the 28th, next week, on the 28th at UPSA. You will come in the event, on the break, you'll be presented with your certificate. To also be a mini program in the main program. So we are getting ready for you. So now you can exit gently, quietly, to ask the Chief Justice. The ushers will lead you up, so your senior brothers and sisters can come in. But wait, the justices will rise. They'll do something you've never seen before you go. So you all rise. Okay? We don't clap in court, but this one clap. Let's clap for them. Okay, so you wait, they exit before you exit, okay? All right, you may exit. We are starting now. So my lords and ladies, please take up your seats.